Of time here. Just a reminder that how we're spending our time together, this is the most important thing. We don't know what's going to happen after here. We don't even know if we'll make it through the next hour. So just moment to moment, modeling for yourself, considering for yourself how you want to be here with yourself. You have an opportunity in every moment to be enacting something, modeling something that then creates your future for you. And really it's on that moment-to-moment basis. Sometimes we lose track of that. We get so caught up in what we'll do in the future or what will happen, and we take notes in class, and you won't think about it later. Not like that. Not like you think you will when you're taking the notes. The time is now. We should do it together now. However it is, whatever it is that we are seeking in our innermost hearts, now is the time for us to be doing it and to consider what it would be to do that. That makes life quite enchanting, I think. So, as I said in the beginning, promised in the beginning, we'll be doing the first two images of the Lamrim meditation, of the steps. I won't call them steps because in the official tradition, it won't actually be until May that we hit the first step. But there are a number of images, preliminary images, that you meditate on before you get to the first step, which are, of course, steps in and of themselves. But I just want to say, for anyone who's interested in the hardcore academia tradition of the Lamrim, we're still in the preliminary spaces of things. Preparing the mind to receive, to really make the first step. But of course, it's all happening simultaneously. So the first image is the dark forest, which we've been working with, and which is always with us. Even in the quote-unquote completion of the Lamrim, in the full embodiment of the Lamrim, when you are completely integrated with reality, with your own reality and others' reality, which is the same reality, ultimately, a reality that is boundless, that is one that is luminous and infinite, beyond time, and also existing in time. When you are in union with that reality, you will still be in the dark forest. You will still have a relationship to the dark forest. But of course, it will be radically different than your relationship now. But you will still have the dark forest, that ground. It's not like we get to chapter whatever of Genesis, and then we go, oh, we'll forget before God said, let there be light. Forget the dark. That makes it possible for everything. The dark makes everything possible, makes the light possible, okay? So again, I'm going to read to you from the Inferno, and I'm going to read you the next few sentences which bring up the next image. But I'll read you the beginning again, and then on to the next step. So allow yourself to relax and take it in. Midway on our life's journey, I found myself in dark woods, the right road, lost. To tell about those woods is hard, so tangled and rough and savage that thinking of it now, I feel the old fear stirring. Death is hardly more bitter. And yet, to treat the good I found there as well, I'll tell what I saw. Though how I came to enter, I cannot well say, being so full of sleep, whatever moment it was I began to blunder off the true path. But when I came to stop, below a hill that marked one end of the valley that pierced my heart with terror, I looked up toward the crest and saw its shoulders already mantled in rays of that bright planet that shows the road to everyone, whatever our journey. Then I could feel the terror begin to ease that churned in my heart's lake all through the night. So when we began, I I said that I would ask something which I thought was quite a lot to ask of you to enter the space of the dark forest. This is perhaps even more difficult to ask, which is to conceive of a light beyond the dark forest. And when one is truly in the dark forest, as all of us have been and are now, but I think everyone can sense when you are consumed by the dark forest, to imagine a light beyond the dark forest is nearly impossible to do. To conceive of it in such a way that it occurs to you, perhaps I should say. It's one thing to sort of say, I wish this was over, I wish I was done with this, how do I get out of this? But if we are truly lost, if anyone has been lost in a forest, I've been lost in a forest twice, I don't know about anybody else, but when you are really lost, and you recognize that you are truly lost, you do something. You stop. Now I'm just talking physically right now, of course. You know, you're lost, and then you stop, and you try to get your bearings, right? And from there you make a decision of how you wish to move forward. So this moment is speaking to something very deep. This is not, again, an external physical journey. We're talking about an internal spiritual journey beyond the physical, beyond the mental, one of spirit, one of your base core vitality of your being. It is a stopping at that level. So we must ask ourselves, have we stopped? Do we know how to stop? What would it be to stop? In order to truly get our bearings, in order to create the space for a vision beyond the vision we currently have. So something that happens when you stop, like you're physically lost and you stop, everything recalibrates and you have a new sense of things, right? This is that, but beyond what we maybe recognize of that. And it's already happened to all of us and is happening. So the moment, the step, the image that we're talking about now, the mythology that this is offering us to embody is a creation of a different vision in our mind beyond what we can currently see. So this is not something that you don't already have, meaning you already have it in your being. Okay, it's not something that you don't have. And it's not something that if you conceptually understood my words, you would have. It's something other than that, than understanding. So you can nod and you can say, I understand what you're saying right now, but that's not having this vision in your mind. It's something else. It's something that transforms your being innerly. Again, we've all had this moment. But to bring this up, to bring up this potential, requires an extraordinary, tremendous openness within your being, a tremendous and extraordinary sensitivity to what might be beyond. And beyond, when I say beyond, I mean like internally beyond what you're currently swirled in. And that requires a lot of us to still ourselves to that point, to bring back up that possibility to dream of this light that comes in. So we'll do the meditation, and then we'll do some drawings. So if you have your drawing stuff by you, then we'll have some time for that. Again, a word for this in the Christian tradition is grace, which we really don't use that much in the Buddhist tradition, but because it often connects to some idea of some dogmatic God. But there is grace. There is moments when there are discoveries that you realize you could have never worked that out for yourself in your current self, right? It feels like something has come from another place. But those are from the deepest wells in your own being. So get yourself comfy, and again, if you're not comfy straight off, you're not going to get more comfy. And close your eyes. We won't be here for long, so you can let your body know that it's only going to need to stay still for 5-6 minutes. So take this first period of time to make a transition from outer to inner. Sense your weight on the ground, on your chair, wherever you're connected to what is connected to the earth. Allow that to nourish you and hold you. Invite the whole facial mask to relax, the eyes, the mouth, the tongue, all the way down around the heart, the neck, the throat. Enjoy the delicious sensation of not having to hold yourself up in vision, present yourself to yourself or to others right now. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, especially to yourself right now. And then knowing that you know how to do this, but also opening the space that it is a curious thing to you and unknown to you. Investigate the process of making the transition from outer to inner sight, inner vision. Dropping deep, deep, deep into the very core of your being, to a space that is beyond ordinary time and space, that is not held by physical boundaries. And feel that you are able to be comfortable there, that you're able to rest and work in that space, and know that you are currently developing your relationship to that space, deepening and making your relationship to that inner vision more intimate. So allow in that space to rise up the image of the dark forest and place your whole being there. This is your dark. That which is before the path, that which is before there is clarity. This is the well of confusion, the well of fear, noise, terror. Trusting that you have the strength to witness yourself in that space, to allow yourself to be there, and to hold yourself as you are there. And note that in that dark forest, there is no sense of it ever beginning. It is as if you have always been lost. And though you are desperate, desperate like a wild animal, desperate to the state of violence to get out, to find your way, even if the violence, and to see here what the form of violence is for you. Perhaps your violence is to numb out, to just lay down and try to forget everything. Or maybe your violence is to rush through or make a lot of noise, cut trees down. Maybe it's both at different times. What are the ways that we enact to try to free ourselves from this situation, and we only create it more intensely? So you can see that each turn that you take in the dark forest just increases your feeling of being lost and confused. There's no way out of this space with the current rules that you have within the space. It only self-perpetuates. And so sense now an impulse within yourself to stop in a way that you have not stopped before. So to not stop and scheme, or to stop and get a new angle from your current self, but to stop the very self that is in the dark forest. And feel that impulse rise within you. And change your very consciousness. And in that space of total stillness, silence, the dark that is darker than the dark, a thin path of light opens. And in this opening there is relief. There is a sense of extraordinary hope, clarity, breath, beauty, and something quite curious and extraordinary, like something you've always known and yet you have never known and could never have imagined. It is indistinguishable to you whether this light is coming from your own being or from outside. But you begin to follow this path, this way. And as you do, the light grows stronger and more bright. And with that, taking your time in the transition, again, I'll ask that you take your paper wherever you want in the room and take some time to put down your path, be it drawing or in words, or just the energy of that sensation of the light coming in, but to offer some embodiment of that image outside of yourself, for yourself. And we'll take 5-10 minutes for that. No rush, please. No rush. We'll give a few more minutes, and everyone seems like they know what to do. You can always meditate on that image more if you feel like your writing or drawing is done. There's no rush. Another 3-4 minutes. So just one more minute here. So I'm going to go on, but people who are happy drawing or writing, feel free to continue doing that. Do what's meaningful for you. So again, just to point out that everyone knows what to do. Everyone knew what to do, what was meaningful or needed from you. And how can we trust our impulses? How can we trust these intuitions that we have within us fully? That in itself is a practice. And I believe ultimately that is a way you could define a spiritual practice, is to become highly sensitive to your deepest intuitions and to trust them profoundly and completely, and then to enact them. And that means probably often going radically against your current status quo, or encountering all kinds of concerns about what other people think or what you think of you, or stuff that you were told you were supposed to do in a certain way, or the way things were supposed to happen but aren't happening. And so, in this whole thing, this whole workshop today and on and before, and anyone who's come to any of my other classes, and that's really the only practice we're really doing, is to try to come into union. Again, we could call it our true nature. This is just another way to talk about it. So this light, this thing that rises over the hill, that thing up there. There is a light right there. Right, in the Inferno, he's in this dark forest and lost, terrified. And then he stops, and of course, it's, in the image is that the sun rises. But that's pointing to something much more than a physical sun. Right? There is this inner light, this inner awareness of how to move forward to some other self, to some other way of being. We all have that within us. So when we are developing the image of the light in our meditation, in our contemplation, whatever you want to call it, you can walk around and think about this. It's helpful to sit down still, just because your mind's a little bit more attentive when you're still. But how do we develop a relationship to that light? And that it's not something from outside of us, nor is it something from within us, from the current self. How do we look for that? How do we, again, there's not an answer to these questions, it's just opening that space. And to know how to distinguish, to start to sense, to become sensitive, not thinking. To become sensitive in your being, to distinguishing between the impulses or the intuitions which are keeping you in a status quo, and the impulses or intuitions which are taking you beyond, which are taking you towards what you truly desire. And then enfranchising them, empowering yourself to go towards them. And that's very brave, I think, to try to do that. So as you're crafting this image of the light, and it's coming to you, this thing that we might call grace, or the grace is not outside of yourself. It's not outside of yourself. It is within yourself. How do you create the conditions to awaken the grace? Recognizing that there are no conditions, there's nothing that you can currently do to make that happen. And yet, you can create conditions to awaken grace, in the sense that you can create the conditions to be aware of the grace that is continually happening all the time within you. It's not like grace appears. The light, you're in the dark forest and the light appears. The light has always been there. And suddenly, for a moment, the conditions arrive, the stillness is such that you perceive it. Okay? And again, everyone knew what to do, so you already have had experiences of that in your life. So the question then becomes, how do you recognize it? How do you nourish it? How do you go towards it? And what is keeping you from going towards it? What is keeping you from going towards it? So take a minute and think about that, and maybe do a little writing or drawing or list or something, but what is keeping you from moving towards that? And don't try to be smart for yourself. Just trust what you write down. And then again, if you have something down that feels most poignant to you, take a moment and close your eyes and just notice the nature of your relationship to this thing. You don't need to change the relationship. Just notice where you are in relationship to it. Pushing it away, pulling it towards. With it but ignoring it maybe, or maybe you have a relationship to it like, I'll get to it later, I'll get to you later. It's the last email you'll answer, the last call you'll take. And then again, I'd ask you to write a little blessing for how you might want to nourish that relationship. Nourish the relationship between you and the thing that is keeping you in the dark forest. And if you're finished with your blessing, continue writing. If you're still writing, just don't even listen. If you're finished with your blessing, then take a moment and meditate on what it's going to look like to enact that in your life. Be really specific with yourself. What does that look like for you? You might need to imagine a particular circumstance with which you encounter this relationship, and how will you bless yourself in that moment? Will you remember? And then from that space, allow a vision to come to you of a mantra for you that you might enact in that moment to remember or say. Let it be simple enough that it brands itself in your being. It's like a battle cry to your highest self. And if you have it, you won't forget it, but it might be helpful to write it down just to solidify for yourself. This does not need to make sense to anyone but you. And maybe doesn't even make sense to you conceptually. but it provokes an action. That is what a true mantra does. It makes something happen. Does everybody have theirs? Raise your hand if you have your mantra in your heart, and if not, we'll give people some more time. Okay. So just another moment or two, just stay with it in yourself until we're all ready. Okay, so these are very private and personal, but they're also universal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count to 3. You don't need to voice it at all if you don't want to, but I'll count to 3, and on the count of 3, we can all speak simultaneously, so that we put this into the world clearly. That this clears a path. This form of speech, a mantra, is holy speech, and it clears a path for you to move forward into. And if you're feeling uncomfortable speaking it in the room, you can just sing it out in your heart. It's fine too. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Fall away. And then from that space, go ahead and open your last envelope, please. So it's interesting in this moment where the dark forest, in the moment that the light arrives, the dark forest becomes like the womb. It becomes the womb of the birth of a new being. And this image, which I'm sure many people know, if not everyone knows, is an image of the Annunciation. This is pointing towards something, and I'm just going to simply tell some things about the image. And they're not so direct, so just know that. But there may be more direct than being direct. So first of all, this is by an artist, Fra Angelico, who is an early Renaissance painter in Italy. The Angelic Friar is what his name means. He was monastic. And he painted many, many Annunciations in his life, similar to those of you who were here at the last workshop. We were talking about Van Gogh and this process of repetition. And Fra Angelico painted multiple Annunciations, really trying to enter into this moment. This is... I'm not interested in this as a historical moment. I'm interested in it as a symbolic moment that points us towards a realization in our own being, a mythological moment, you might say. So in many of the other images, I want to tell you a little bit about the other ways the Annunciation is shown, and then tell you why I chose this one. In many of the others, and also of Fra Angelico's, but if you look at Annunciations throughout history, there are certain symbols that point towards this extraordinary moment. This is the the image of the birth of wisdom in one's being, which is also because wisdom and compassion are inseparable. It is the birth of great compassion where one's heart opens. And therefore it is the birth in Christianity, you might say, of Christ consciousness within yourself. It's not about the birth of a child, but it is the birth of openness, true wisdom and compassion within your heart, where you become a different type of consciousness. And in other images, there's often a dove, and the dove is symbolic of Mary conceiving through hearing. It's very interesting to think about this process. So you come to a teaching like today and you hear words, they implant themselves somewhere in your being and they grow, and then they conceive within yourself a new vision. So it's a special hearing. It's not ordinary hearing, but Mary is hearing something that is beyond ordinary hearing, and one might call that silence, true silence. So Mary enters a state of silence. It points us towards something. Again, these are pointing us towards something that is possible in our own being, to hear the sound of no self. And then often she's by a book, an open Bible, or she's by a spindle where she's making cloth for the church, or it wouldn't be the church, of the temple. And so basically she's doing holy work. She's studying. And often in the images, the book is open, but she's turned away from the book. So this is an indication to the moment where we have done our external study. We've done our conceptual study. And when I say external, I even mean external within your own mind, so all your concepts. And those fall away. But that they fall away because you've done that work, right? So it's not as easy as just saying like, well then it's like I already have it within me. I don't do anything then, right? Like I got it, done. It's not that simple. Otherwise, we'd already be done, right? Whatever we think done might be. We'd already be where we want to be. So there is great importance to the depth of service, the spindle representing service, serving a temple, serving the image of the holy in your life, externally, through your efforts, through your work, your breath, your thoughts, your heart beating, your sweat, and through your study, reading words, trying to understand them, listening to teachings, listening to other people, taking them in, trying to penetrate all of these symbols. Words are just symbols, trying to penetrate them within your own being. Very important. And then often the angel, this is the angel Gabriel, who's the messenger of God. And the angel is often holding a scepter, which just means that offering a message, but more often is holding a lily, which is an image of purity. So this idea that the divine enters through a pure self, and to think about what that is, what a space of purity is within your being, and recognize when we have all kinds of weird fantasies about that, about what we do to be pure, but that it's a potential that's already within us. So usually there's a lot of ornateness around the experience, but I particularly am moved by this particular version because one, they are stripped of kind of all these other outer symbols, and all that's left are the two figures. And as you can see, they're very similar. They're sort of almost dressed the same, except Gabriel has some wings. But they both have a halo. Their hair is very similar. And of course, they're in this gesture. And this gesture, which is the gesture of the cross, we would call it a mudra in Buddhism, and actually this mudra in Buddhism is the mudra of the union between compassion and wisdom. So it's very moving to think this inner experience happens and the body takes this shape. It's also pointing you towards your heart. So it's separating the lower parts of your consciousness, and it's saying at this moment your consciousness is entering your heart, is piercing your heart. Very beautiful. And then, of course, they're bowing to each other. But most moving to me is that really all that's happening here is they're just looking at each other, and they've taken the shape of each other. So this is speaking to this moment when subject and object unite and become the other, which is a moment of this light entering also. I'll give you a hint in terms of where we're going in the next workshop, which is called the guide. So in time, you follow the light, and the light becomes the image of your teacher. So you are seeing externally the image of your own inner heart, and that becomes your guide. So this is happening here for Mary. So to muse on this image gives you a lot to consider this. You can also see in this image there's a little prison door in the back, a little prison wall, and pointing to this moment where you move beyond that. It's hard to tell within the image if I've actually cut down the image a bit, they're actually outside. So it's like they've moved beyond that prison space, and this is happening outside of that. You could say like through that window, beyond that window is the dark forest, but this is happening outside of that space. And on the other side, I just put you are not you, you are fruition, which is a bit of a text from Thomas Merton, from a much longer text that Thomas Merton wrote on this moment of going into union with the divine, of recognizing this light. And I think it's just a nice mantra, you are not you. Just to walk around and just remember that. And the mystery of what it would be to be fruition. You are fruition. So I just offer this to you as something to consider, to think about what this state of being might be, to know that this is already within yourself. But it points us towards something, and it gives us a lot to consider. So as you go into the image of the light within yourself, the guide, the path, we can see that in this moment, the Mary that was is no longer there anymore. Nor is there a separate angel, but they are becoming one being. So where's that moment where we lose our separation from others and we feel that connectivity on a very, so this is all very lofty, what I'm saying, or could be very lofty, sort of like in the stratosphere. But just to bring it to the ground, in your moment-to-moment existence, moment-to-moment daily life, what space of your body, speech, or mind provokes connection with the people around you, and what separates you from others, and to move towards what you feel connects you deeply, not connects you in the space of the 8 worldly thoughts, which is just sort of feeding what it is that so your kind of current self is interested in, but what allows you to encounter the other, to really feel related to the other, which is of course quite dangerous, because it means we have to open ourselves to a certain extent to take in the other. So just to ask you to take a moment and think about that in terms of your life, where you feel the greatest connectivity. And again, maybe make a list of 1 or 57,000 in the 2 minutes that we'll do it. And just make a note for yourself. They might be a place, it might be a person, it might be an event, it might just be a way that you sense, and it doesn't have to make any conscious conceptual sense, or it might, but it's not for anyone but you. And then again, I would ask you one more time to consider a piece of advice to give yourself. And it might just be putting together some of the things you've already said, but a helpful hint as you move on your way from this time together. And make sure that you feel within yourself as you write these things that you can relate to them. And that it's not something that causes violence within yourself, but when you write these things down, when you write your advice, it warms your heart and it inspires you to move towards it. And again, if anyone feels moved for yourself or for others to voice, actually, I would say anything in terms of what you've written within, a sentence or two. Please do, as an offering.
Consider you need to be isolated to rest.
When feeling anxious or frustrated with a situation, imagine that the subjects and/or the people you are encountering were your most beloved teachers.
Try, don't try, don't try not to try.
Make space for what you are moving through. Do not rush the process. Do not hide your feelings. Love yourself by letting yourself be exactly as you are.
Forget myself or concept of self to enter fully into the moment.
Be kind to yourself. Time will be the hardest test. Perspective makes this easier. Perspective overcomes time itself.
Live for the love of the search for life.
Go to bed early.
Speak sweetly.
Okay, thank you for your blessings. Thank you for your words. So as we move forward, I want to say one more time that each of you know what it is that you want to do. And the question becomes, how will you hold that clarity as you move out of the space, make the transition from this space and this mind into the mind of the outside space. You have much that you've brought to yourself today, and I'd like to offer that if you want to take this on, really moving into this deeply really helps to do it every day. And there are many ways that you can do that, but a very simple way is to find 5, 10, 2 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, a time that feels manageable for you in your life, but that's just on the edge of manageable maybe, so you're not numbing yourself out into a comfort zone and spacing out, to sit down and think about these things. And you might sit still with your eyes closed, or you might not. You might walk outside slowly and say, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to think about these things, but you make a space for yourself. You make a way, you make a path, and then you enter the path. No one else makes your path. If you don't tend to your path, you have a world of weeds. You have to make the path every day, or it gets overgrown so very quickly, okay? So I invite you for the next month until we meet again to make some space every day to consider the 8 transitory thoughts, and the first week will probably be just learning them for most people. Just what is it? What are these? Gain and what? And so you take out your card, you remind yourself what you're encountering, read it a few times, and then think about it, and maybe do some writing about it, and to sit down and think about the dark forest, and think about the light, and what your relationship is to those two things, and how you want to be in your life with those things, and then to become sensitive then as you go through the rest of your day. So maybe you do that in the morning or the afternoon, it depends on your life. But either way, whatever is on either end of your time, your space that you've made, you then continue the path by trying to remain sensitive to how those things are enacting in themselves in your life. So you try not to just make the little space and then see you later, but try to keep that way opening for yourself, okay? And everyone in here knows how to do that. No one has to teach you how to meditate. No one has to teach you how to pray. I mean, of course, we can offer all kinds of suggestions and things that are useful, and there are useful things in terms of how to sit, and there are ways that make it easier to come into contact with your inner being. But only because you already know how to do it, you see. If you didn't have it already in you, it couldn't be assisted and nourished. You gotta have the seed in you, and everyone's got the seed, okay? So, for the love of your own life, I really ask that you consider the person who came today and who entered this so fully, and that you nourish that person through the next month, or through the next rest of your years if I don't see you again, okay? And then I was also asked to just say something about donations. So before I say that, I want to make it very clear that this space has nothing to do with commerce, and we do not need your money. this realm that we are encountering with each other, that we are relating to each other right now, is out of the business world and must be, okay? That being said, the center costs money to keep open, and those of us who find this space and this community a meaningful space, we put some of our material offerings as an offering to keep this space growing. And if this time was meaningful to you and you enjoyed being here today and you feel like it nourished you, then I ask you as an offering to nourish it back, which you have already done by being here, but $1 will help, or anything else you want to put in will help us keep this space open so we can continue to do classes like this. And that's really all. I thank you for coming. As I said in the beginning, it's very meaningful for me in my life, and I'm deeply moved that all of you were here, and I'm very, very grateful that you chose to spend your time with me today. I do not take that for granted or lightly. And so I thank you, and if you are able to come next month, I'll be very happy to see you then. And you can email me at, now I have a Mahasukha email? What is it? I haven't used it yet. It's mira@mahasukha.org. You can email me if you have questions or anything you want to share or anything that comes up. And that's it. Let's make a little dedication. Close your eyes for a moment. And know that you have all this energy now moving forward, all this power that you've gathered and focused during your time here. And you don't have to try to even think about that. You can just feel it. Here you are. You have it now. And make a consideration for yourself in the future, yourself in a moment where you might be in the dark forest and totally lost, not able to remember that you even came to this teaching. And think about all the other beings in this room and all the other beings on the planet, all who are passing through those moments of feeling extraordinarily lost throughout their day. And offer yourself and all those beings a great light from your heart, streaming forth from this energy that you've gathered. And feel that it strikes them at their heart and awakens their deep intuition inside themselves, awakens that image of light. And that they find their way sweetly, joyfully, wherever it is that they may be going. And wish them well, yourself as well in the future on your journey. And then you can let everything fall away and be happy that you came today so you could do that and feel light and easy now. All is accomplished. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Jed, don't forget your microchip is up here.